Have you ever fantasized about how great it would be if one morning you woke up and the apocalypse suddenly arrived? Because then you wouldn't have to go to work anymore. That's what happened to Akira Tendo. He was a young and ambitious individual who had just entered the workforce, full of expectations for the future. Unfortunately, he ended up joining a shady company. On his first day at work, he was asked by his boss to work overnight, and he thought it was just an occasional thing. Little did he know, it would become a regular occurrence. In the days that followed, even going home became a luxury. He was essentially living at the office, taking care of all sorts of tasks and chores. If he ever let his guard down, he would face Gonzo's harsh criticism and blame. This monotonous routine, day after day, year after year, slowly wore down Akira Tendo's spirit. He lost all hope in life and even began to contemplate ending it all on his way home from work. But on this particular morning, the gears of fate started turning. Akira Tendo noticed that the old man downstairs had turned into a zombie straight out of a movie. Reacting quickly, Akira Tendo rushed upstairs as he realized that the people in the apartment building had all mutated and were chasing after him. As he ran, he kept an eye on the time, because zombies don't scare him. He's more worried about being late for work. He sprinted all the way to the rooftop and vaulted over the fence just before the zombie horde caught up. In a moment of shock, he sees a burning Boeing 747 passing overhead. The entire city lay in ruins, and the streets were filled with horrifying scenes of zombies devouring humans. The apocalypse had truly arrived. However, Akira Tendo didn't feel scared. Instead, he was unusually excited. After all, nothing could be scarier than going to work. Having gone a whole year without a vacation, Akira Tendo finally had control over his own time. He could now do whatever he wanted. To add to his joy, the female coworker he had a crush on sent him a message, needing his help. It was like a double stroke of luck. Akira Tendo couldn't wait and eagerly crawled down a drainage pipe to go meet her. On the way, Akira Tendo encountered a married couple, and he mentioned he would bring back some supplies for them. The couple looked puzzled. They wondered if this young man was seriously ill. Akira Tendo riding a bike with a happy smile on his face. Despite the pursuing zombies, he quickly reached his female coworker's apartment building. Upon entering the apartment, his female coworker embraced him out of fear. He thought it might be the beginning of a romantic encounter, but it turned out there was a zombie in the room. What was even more surprising was that the zombie was none other than the company's boss. It seems that their relationship is not normal. Akira Tendo urged his female coworker to leave quickly, but her foot seemed injured. In order to protect her, Akira Tendo had no choice but to rush forward and block the approaching zombies. Unintentionally, he accidentally tore off the boss's wig. Seizing the moment, Akira Tendo used the wig to plug the boss's gaping mouth, but he was unexpectedly flung away. Upon getting back on his feet, Akira Tendo immediately assumed a defensive stance. Having once been a college football athlete, his speed and strength surpassed that of an average person. Leveraging the fallen wig, Akira Tendo swiftly incapacitated the zombie with a decisive move. Finally, the female coworker managed to kill the zombie. However, just as Akira Tendo thought the danger had subsided, he witnessed his female coworker suddenly collapsing and convulsing. It turns out that the female colleague has been bitten by the boss. In the next moment, his female coworker rose in an impressively complex pose, transforming completely into a zombie. Witnessing the girl he secretly admired assume this form, Akira Tendo was overwhelmed with heartache. Seizing the opportunity, Akira Tendo confessed his feelings to the girl before tearfully leaving the scene. He then crawled back home through the pipes. However, while passing by the married couple's home during the day, he discovered that they had vanished. The room was left in disarray, with only scattered bloodstains remaining. Their fate appeared grim. Back at home, Akira Tendo looked at the food he had brought back for the couple and thought of his now zombified female coworker. He couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. Perhaps one day, this fate might befall him too. In order to avoid regrets if he were to turn into a zombie, Akira Tendo decided to fulfill 100 wishes during this uncertain period and document them in a notebook. These wishes included confessing his feelings to someone he liked, dyeing his hair, and taking a hot spring bath. Among other things, he would use a ballpoint pen to cross out each wish as he accomplished it. Although these actions might seem commonplace to others, for Akira Tendo, they were distant dreams. The next morning, he set his plan into motion. He began by thoroughly cleaning his home, then went to a supermarket to gather items he wouldn't typically indulge in. Akira Tendo then went to the hairdresser's to get his hair colored, and finally rode home on his Harley motorbike. In one day, he fulfills several wishes. Yet, after the celebrations, Akira Tendo couldn't help but feel a pang of emptiness. He longed for someone to share in these experiences with him. Looking at the photos on his table, he remembered his college friend Kenichiro. So, Akira Tendo gave him a call and was fortunate to find out that Kenichiro was still alive. However, Kenichiro was trapped in a zombie-infested hotel corridor, making escape seemingly impossible. Upon hearing this, Akira Tendo immediately promised to come to his rescue. After hanging up the phone, Akira Tendo set off on his Harley motorcycle. Zombies were scattered everywhere on the streets, relentlessly lunging at him. 3 zombies even grabbed onto the tail of his motorcycle, but Akira Tendo skillfully drifted and shook them off. He continued riding until nightfall, finally reaching his destination. However, he was taken aback by the even larger number of zombies there. Luckily, Akira Tendo was prepared. Akira Tendo took out a Bluetooth speaker and threw it to the zombies, and then used his mobile phone to play songs. Once most of the zombies were attracted to the sound, Akira Tendo donned his college sports attire and resolutely charged forward. While the number of zombies remained high, Akira Tendo managed to smoothly navigate through them thanks to his powerful physique. Inside the room, Kenichiro had been hiding when he suddenly noticed that the outside had grown quiet. The zombies that had been filling the hallway had vanished, prompting Kenichiro to seize the opportunity to make his escape. Unbeknownst to him, as he stepped out of the room, he encountered Akira Tendo, who had come to rescue him. However, the zombies had also spotted them. The two managed to flee to the rooftop, finally shaking off the pursuit of the undead. Afterwards, Kenichiro cooks for them and they have a dinner at the hotel, a rare feast amidst the apocalypse. Yet, it was evident that staying here in the city center, with its multitude of zombies, was not a viable long-term plan. After deliberation, the two decided to head to an aquarium in the outskirts. It was safer there, away from the urban center, and offered an abundance of seafood. The following morning, they set out on their journey. However, a long trek necessitates ample supplies. As they opened the roll-up door of a shop, they suddenly realized that not far away was a bus that had been forced to stop, filled with survivors. Seeing the zombies closing in, the survivors panicked and began rushing out of the bus, but they were soon overwhelmed by the zombies. Akira Tendo spotted the survivors who were still alive and signaled for them to hurry towards their direction. With the help of Kenichiro and Akira Tendo, 3 survivors managed to take refuge inside the shop. But just as Akira Tendo was about to enter the store, he realizes that there is a woman who is still trapped by the zombies. With the number of zombies growing behind her, Kenichiro and Akira Tendo shouted for her to run over. Ultimately, just before the horde of zombies caught up, they successfully made it inside the shop. Unbeknownst to them, one of the security guards had been bitten by a zombie, yet he chose not to reveal it. Subsequently, the 2 women suggested having a drink to calm their nerves, inviting Kenichiro and Akira Tendo to join them. Faced with the invitation from these attractive women, Kenichiro and Akira Tendo couldn't resist. Upon learning that the 2 women were flight attendants, Akira Tendo's eyes lit up. Drinking with flight attendants was one of the items on his list of 100 wishes. However, being inexperienced in romantic matters, Akira Tendo had no idea how to converse with women. His first attempt at conversation was met with merciless laughter from everyone. Embarrassed, Akira Tendo retreated to the side. Unexpectedly, in the brief moment after Akira Tendo took a sip of his drink, Kenichiro skillfully engaged both women in conversation. Watching his dear friend being embraced by 2 lovely ladies, Akira Tendo couldn't help but feel envious. Akira Tendo wished to join in but was ignored. They even seemed to consider Akira Tendo a hindrance and decided to continue their interaction elsewhere. Akira Tendo was left alone and sad. Fortunately, at that moment, another girl returned from patrol, providing Akira Tendo with someone to talk to. Compared to the others, Shizuka was even more concerned about the safety of their surroundings. At all times, Shizuka remained vigilant. Unexpectedly, while they were conversing, the security guard lying on the ground suddenly underwent a transformation. Realizing the danger, they quickly fled. However, the pursuing zombies suddenly halted. It turned out that Kenichiro and the others were engaging in role play, and the sounds they produced attracted the zombies. Just as 2 flight attendants helped Kenichiro fasten his seatbelt for takeoff, a zombie suddenly appears behind them and tackles one of the women to the ground. At first, they thought it was the security guard harassing the flight attendant. Only after they pulled the security guard away did they realize he had turned into a zombie. The other flight attendant was also tackled by the guard. Terrified, Kenichiro turned and fled. However, soon enough, the 2 flight attendants also underwent a transformation. There was nowhere to escape within the shop. At a critical moment, Kenichiro lit a firework to attract the zombies' attention. Seizing the opportunity, they made their escape. Finding a motorhome and finally leaving the area, they decided to drive the motorhome to the aquarium. Given the long journey ahead, they played and explored while on the road. Akira Tendo even took the chance to fulfill several of his wishes, such as skydiving and soaking in a hot spring. After days of arduous travel, they finally caught sight of the aquarium. However, just then, the motorhome suddenly had a blowout and veered out of control, crashing into the roadside. Inertia caused Akira Tendo to collide with a wooden board and lose consciousness. Unbelievably, someone had intentionally placed nails on the road. When Akira Tendo woke up, he saw Gonzo, his former company supervisor. Akira Tendo had believed that the apocalypse was just a dream, but it turned out that Gonzo had also arrived at the aquarium, and those nails on the road were Gonzo's doing. Not only that, Gonzo had turned the aquarium into a safe zone and become the leader there. He continued the company's management system, requiring people to work for him in exchange for food. Even in the midst of the apocalypse, Akira Tendo couldn't escape the fate of working. Meanwhile, Kenichiro and Shizuka had already started working. Later, Gonzo took Akira Tendo outside and introduced him to the aquarium's security system, which was a large group of zombies. With these zombie guards, no one dared to come and plunder resources. Even the zombies were working, so why shouldn't you? Even if not for yourself, you should consider your comrades. After all, there's plenty of resources here and it's absolutely safe. Under Gonzo's sugar-coated persuasion, Akira Tendo had no choice but to accept reality. However, the reality was that Gonzo and his group were feasting on lavish meals, while ordinary employees could only have emergency rations. The most unfortunate was Akira Tendo, who had to stand aside and be at their beck and call. But soon, an unexpected incident occurred. Due to the negligence of an employee who was searching for supplies outside, a zombie managed to sneak into the vehicle. As the returning employees opened the cargo door, they were immediately attacked by the zombie inside. The zombies, attracted by the commotion, began converging on their location. The zombies quickly infiltrated the interior of the aquarium, launching an attack on the remaining survivors inside. The entire aquarium instantly turned into a playground for the zombies. A few zombies accidentally fell into the shark tank and were devoured by the sharks. Led by Akira Tendo, the remaining survivors barely managed to evade the zombies' pursuit. Suddenly, the entire venue trembled. Just as everyone was bewildered, a shark leaped out of the water and smashed a survivor to death on the spot. Upon closer inspection, the shark had turned into a zombie shark, its gaping jaws capable of devouring several people at once. Panicked, everyone immediately turned and ran, except for Shizuka, who remained unfazed, because no matter how fierce a shark is, it's still a small loach on land. But then, to their disbelief, the shark started sprouting numerous human legs. In an instant, it transformed into a hybrid creature, capable of both land and water movement. This development sent everyone into a frenzy as they desperately fled. However, they were stopped by the shark crashing through a wall, blocking their path. They hurriedly sought refuge in an adjacent warehouse. Unfortunately, Gonzo hadn't managed to make it inside and accidentally drew the attention of the zombie shark, which immediately homed in on him. Akira Tendo noticed Gonzo hadn't made it inside and decided to go out to rescue him. Although Gonzo had treated him poorly, Akira Tendo couldn't just stand by and watch him get devoured. Luckily, there was an anti-shark suit in the warehouse. Just as the zombie shark was about to strike Gonzo, Akira Tendo, wearing the protective suit, arrived in the nick of time. With a powerful kick, Akira Tendo managed to topple the zombie shark. Thinking he was invincible in the suit, Akira Tendo foolishly engaged in a head-on confrontation with the zombie shark. However, he was swiftly overpowered by its immense strength and pinned beneath it. To make matters worse, in his panic, Gonzo let the zombies into the warehouse and fled, leaving Akira Tendo behind. Fortunately, the zombies only had eyes for Gonzo. At that moment, Kenichiro arrived in a forklift. Akira Tendo struggles to break free and hands the zombie shark over to Kenichiro. They thought the forklift would have a fight on its hands, but I didn't realize it was just an instantaneous exchange. The forklift was then forced to step back, and was finally pressed against the wall, unable to move. Kenichiro had no choice but to abandon the truck to save his life. In the split second before the zombie shark caught up, Kenichiro managed to leap into the venue through a hole in the wall. The pursuing zombie shark became trapped in the hole. However, the crisis was far from over. Due to the zombies Gonzo had let in, Akira Tendo found himself surrounded by a horde of zombies. Though the shark suit protected him from bites, it couldn't shield him from the pain. Thankfully, Shizuka arrived with a megaphone to provide support. She lured the zombies away, and then positioned herself by the edge of a water pool and tossed the megaphone to the other side. The mindless zombies followed the sound and plunged into the water. Seeing that the zombies had been dealt with, Gonzo, who had been cowering on the sidelines, finally emerged and praised their efforts. Even at a time like this, he couldn't resist showing his leadership demeanor. Even the zombie shark stuck in the hole couldn't stand it anymore. And the huge impact directly made Gonzo faint. Akira Tendo rushes over to check it out but becomes the target of a zombie shark attack. He grabbed a piece of wood at hand in an attempt to resist, but it proved futile. The zombie shark had clamped down tightly on Akira Tendo's right hand. It must be said that the anti-shark suit was indeed of high quality. However, if things continued this way, he might not be bitten to death, but he would certainly be thrashed to death. Just then, Shizuka had a sudden inspiration. She took out the batteries from her flashlight, preparing to administer an electric shock treatment to the zombie shark. Sharks rely on sensors to locate prey. If the shark gets shocked, its sensors would be disrupted. Though uncertain if it would work, it was the only option they had. Akira Tendo's anti-shark suit could conduct electricity, so the batteries needed to be given to him. Finally breaking free from the shark's grip, Akira Tendo was informed of the plan. However, in the next moment, the zombie shark sent Akira Tendo flying. Seeing this, Kenichiro quickly tossed the batteries to Akira Tendo, only to be knocked away by the shark as well. Fortunately, Akira Tendo managed to catch the batteries. Seeing Kenichiro on the ground, Akira Tendo's anger surged. Clutching the batteries tightly, he charged at the zombie shark. With precise accuracy, Akira Tendo's powerful punch landed squarely on the zombie shark's nose. Indeed, this method was effective. The zombie shark finally met its demise. With the crisis averted, the survivors gathered their supplies and prepared to leave. However, they were confronted by Gonzo's attempts to stop them. This time, they did not compromise. Gonzo was a selfish man who only cared about saving his own life in times of danger, completely indifferent to the well-being of others. Such a person was unworthy of leadership. Everyone drove away, leaving Gonzo behind to fend for himself. As for Akira Tendo and his group, they embarked on a new path of survival. They each had their own wishes they wanted to fulfill, and they planned to accomplish them together in this apocalyptic world.